So today I want to go over one of the most fundamental parts of any programming language, and that's an if statement. So basically this is a conditional statement that checks if something is true, and if it is true, it does a specific thing. So we're going to get into this and make it a little bit more clear. So the basic structure of an if statement is like this. You have if, and then a conditional statement, a colon, and then some code to be run. We'll get into the more advanced parts of if statements in a couple minutes, but let's just start with this. So now let's write actual code. Let's first start by defining a number. So we'll do number equals 12. And we'll say if number, two equal signs, and we'll go over that in 1 second, 12, then, and we'll have it print number is 12. So now let's run this. And we'll run it just as we always do, Python 3, and then the name of the file, basic if, and you'll see number is 12, because what it's doing is it sees number. Again, we've gone over variables before. This is just a basic integer. Number equals 12, we're setting it equal to that, and then we're checking if number is equal to 12. And then right here, we have it print number is 12 if it is equal to 12. Let's change that. Let's make number 10. And you'll see if we run it, nothing happens, because what's taking place is it first sets number equal to 10, and then it checks if number is equal to 12. And obviously 10 is not equal to 12, so it doesn't run this code. So any code in this indented bit will be run assuming this condition is correct. So now what if you want something else to run if it isn't correct? Well, you type in this, else. Then you can type anything you want in here. So let's print, number, again, not a great typist. Number is not 12. And then we'll run this. And you'll see number is not 12 because number is 10. So that's pretty basic. Again, if we switch it to 12, run it, you'll see number is 12. Just as we did before. And if you set it to 15, again, it'll check number is 12. That's not true, so it goes to else. And then it prints number is not 12. Number is not 12. Before I get a bit deeper, I want to explain these two equal signs. Basically, it differentiates setting a variable and checking a value. So this right here returns a Boolean. So in the past, we talked about Booleans, and the way that if statements work is they just take a Boolean. So this will actually return true or false. When I say that, I mean when we used Booleans in the past and we said Boolean equals true or Boolean equals false, this is exactly what that's seeing. So when it says 15 equals 12, and we can even type that out here, let's comment some of this out. We print 15 equals 12, you'll see it won't print out this because it's not a string, but it'll run it and it'll actually print out false. So let's run this and you'll see it'll print false. So this is actually returning a Boolean like we talked about in the past. It's not super important to understand that right now, but that understanding will definitely come in the future when you work more with if statements. So let's expand this a little bit. Say we want to see if the number is 12 or if it's 14. So we don't want to do that with multiple if statements because that's just a pain and that's a mess. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to add a new bit of syntax here, and that is a lif. So a lif is basically combining else and if. So el from else and just if from if. And you combine that, you get a lif. In other programming languages, you'll actually just see else if, but in Python, it's a lif. So a lif number equals 14. And then we'll say print number is 14. So now instead what the code is going to do, let me space this out a bit. So now what the code will do is it'll set number equal to 14. It'll run this statement right here. So it'll say number equals 12, and it knows number is 14. It knows 14 does not equal 12, so that will return false. So it won't run this. It'll go down here to a if, and then it'll check if number equals 14, which it does. This is basically a second if statement, but they're chained together. And then it'll print 14. Say number was 13. This will return false as well, and just as before, it'll go to else. So now let's set this to 14, and I'll prove that. Number is 14, right? Because it runs this line. So that's pretty basic. Let's do a practical example of if statements. So if you wanted to check if a number is even or odd, and you were just looking at it, how would you check if it's even or odd? So a lot of people will just memorize what numbers are even and what numbers are odd. Those who aren't familiar with mathematics won't understand the actual reason why they are even or they're odd. So let's get into how we'd write this code. We'll use user input again because we've done that in the past. I'm sure you're comfortable with that. So we'll do it like this. Number equals input, as we've done before. Remember, inside of this is the prompt, so we'll say enter a number, \n to make a new line, and then we'll do the actual if statement. So again, this will take a user input and it'll set it equal to number. Oh, and we actually forgot one more thing. Remember, when it takes user input, it takes it as a string, so we want to make sure we make that an integer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write the actual if statement. I'm going to get into doing more proper code just so you get used to it. So here I'm going to make a comment and we'll say check if number is even or odd. And then we'll start the if statement. A lot of times when people decide if a number is even or odd and they don't have a mathematical mind yet, they'll just consider if it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, or 2, 4, 6, 8. And they'll know if it's even or odd just because they've memorized that. The actual reason that a number is even or odd is if it's divisible by 2. So if the number is divisible by 2, then it's an even number. If it's not, it's an odd number. So in the past, we talked about the different operations that you can do on integers in Python. So we had addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, powers, and then we had one more. So this is actually the modular division. And if you don't recall, this is basically used as a division sign, but instead of returning x divided by y, it'll return the remainder of x divided by y. Say you did 10 modulus 3. That would divide 10 by 3, and then it'll find out what's the remainder of this operation. So of course, 10 divided by 3 is 9 with a remainder of 1, so it'll return 1. And let me prove that to you. If this looks unfamiliar, don't even worry about it. Basically, I'm just opening a, right, there's no clear. Basically, I'm just opening a Python shell. So this is just Python language. I'm just going to make it clear to you how this works. So we can do 10 mod 3, and it'll give us 1, just as I said, right? Because that is the remainder. So with that knowledge, if you did 10 mod 2, you'd get 0, right? You get 0. If you did 9 mod 2, you'd get 1. So now that we can see 0 through 10 mod by 2, you can see a bit of a pattern. So 10 mod 2 is 0, 9 mod 2 is 1, 8 mod 2 is 0, and so on. So the pattern here, as you may notice, 10 is an even number, and it returns 0. 9 is an odd number, and it returns 1. 8 is an even number, and it returns 0. 7 is an odd number, and it returns 1, and so on, right? Fun fact, 0 is an even number. But now let's get into how we'd actually write this. So what we do, just as we did before with the if statement structure, we'd say if number mod 2 equals 0, so that would mean that it's an even number, print number is even. And then we could say else because there's only two possible scenarios, but just to get extra practice, I want to say elif. So number mod 2 equals 1, and then we'd print too many. Number is odd. And then we can say else if we want, but again, that's impossible. Print, like, not sure how you got here. And now let's try this out. Python 3, basic, just as we did before. It says enter a number. So let's try 1. So 1 is an odd number. Number is odd, look at that. Let's try it again. We'll do just a crazy number, right? So this is an odd number. Number is odd. Let's do it again. Do another crazy number, but let's make it an even number. Number is even. Look at that, it works flawlessly. Now in the future, we'll go over why you can't enter something like 12.5, right? A float instead of an integer. That throws an error, right? Again, we'll get into that more in the future, but just keep that in mind and think about that. So there you go. This is a really practical use of if statements. A lot of times you won't be writing a program to actually tell if a number is even or odd, but a program that you're writing might need to know if the number is even or odd. I hope this helped you out, and please stick around for the rest of the series. Thanks for watching, and be safe.